What's up, you filthy animals? I mean, humans. And welcome to a new Psicoactivo live from Tijuana and also from Scotland. Welcome, Andy, to the Monday show. We gotta get a name for this stuff, man.
Yeah, and perhaps like a joint intro song for it as well, so we don't have to keep
Yeah,
alternating every other
yeah.
week. But yeah, I'm good. How are you? How's things?
Doing well. Busy week. We haven't had a time to talk about what's been going on over the last week, you and I.
Mm,
Um, Well, there's been a couple of things that happened. In your thumbnail, you talk about Bigelow and the two interviews that he just released, and what seems to be like it's going to be an ongoing thing with George Knapp, the Bigelow podcast. We did talk about the first episode and the last time you were on Doomer Friday with us. But what did you think about the latest interview from him? What were the highlights, so to speak, from that to you?
so George Knapp reached out to me when they were going to start it for some advice. That's not true. That's not true. Uh, just not,
Dude,
just
that
not.
could be true.
Totally could have left that in there. No one would have corrected me. So it's really interesting because I have a lot of questions on this. I've actually written down trying to put a little bit of formatting into this for some personality. Pavel, there's a word for you today. So my top 5 for this, right, is why has Bigelow launched his own series and what is he building towards? Because as I'm watching this part 1 and part 2, I'm wondering, could you have just done this on Mystery Wire with Knapp or Coast to Coast? I'm sure Coast to Coast would have loved this as a series. Or could you have just done it on Weaponized, which would have seemed a relevant vehicle to do it? There's all kind of conversations that can come up there, I suppose. So I'm quite curious as to why it's being done in the format it's being done. I don't see this evolving into, because it seems it's the Bigelow podcast, but it's Bigelow being interviewed by Knapp. So I don't see it changing. That won't always be the format that those two are on, with Knapp interviewing, Bigelow answering. Perhaps down the line they have maybe Colm Kelleher pop in, James Lakatsky perhaps pops in to say he can't answer anything. Lakatsky was a big topic, a big subject matter, wasn't he, on
or
part
to
two?
tell you, it's in the book.
Yeah. You have to read my book. He's the Marty Funkhauser, for anyone who watches Curb Your Enthusiasm, of the UFO topic, isn't he? Really curious guy. But yeah, I'm curious on the format. I'm curious where it's building towards and why now, why this is coming out now.
Well, apparently now that he already knows that what happens after we die, that we continue, according to what he said, maybe he's just pivoting to podcasting now. He's done, like, I don't know. But let's
Like,
see a
wait
little
a
clip
second. Are you
though.
saying like a fate worse than death is podcast host? So the guy literally found out what comes after death and went, shit, I'm just going to start a podcast and resign myself to going to hell. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh. How do you know he's going to hell? Who knows?
We all are.
Is it because he's a billionaire? Maybe.
Seen too many
You do
movies that make it look fun.
you do lose touch when you become a billionaire, so I'm told.
Yeah. As a multimillionaire, I found once I made my $8th million, it changed me. That's when I got the acoustic paneling done. I told people this costs like £150 or £200, whatever I paid for it, but telling you this, it changed me. My gold plated floor, fucking yeah.
Oh man, sorry guys, I'm just fucking around on a Monday, I guess. Okay, so let's watch a clip. Let's get our serious face now. Let's watch a clip where Bigelow explains why he's doing the whole disclosure thing, why he approached Trump, and see if you believe his explanation, and let's comment on it afterwards.
A lot of people who watched it is, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it now? And how far do you want to go?
So I think the initial push was sometime back with the publishing of Jim Lakatsky's a book in 2023, and then he did a sequel in 25, and another one in 2026. And I have all three of those books here on the table. And then later was when I was with the president and was doing the disclosure advisory kind of thing with him and giving him some help and ideas and so on. I realized that that I was rowing upstream on this thing against the tide, and the tide was what the Pentagon had already decided they were going to do, and what Arrow actually meant as a disguise and probably a fraudulent effort to squash disclosure. And so I thought, well, this isn't fair to the president if this is going on behind his back. And then if he wants honesty and disclosure, then he needs support from the government, from all these other people, all the, that are rowing the other direction. So I would like to, I actually flagged specific areas in Lukaski's book here, the one that he authored in 2023, I think it is. Yeah. And then also refer to some things that Lukaski and George Knapp and Colin Kelleher authored in Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, because you guys did a really good job.
By the way, before we dive into that, I don't know if you've seen how much of the reaction on social media you've seen to the episode 1, but it's pretty overwhelming.
Okay, that's one. What do you think about his response?
What's the gist of his response, actually? What's he saying the reason for this was?
I think it was kind of a non-answer, bro.
Yeah, it's like,
He didn't really
like,
say anything.
almost like they've decided to cover this up. So, look, Bigelow's, so far, he's not said a whole lot that he's not said before. I think that's fair. In terms of his drops, but I think we've always had to refer back to the same few interviews for Bigelow over the years and these big statements. And for anyone who is unaware, Bigelow obviously heavily involved with the UFO topic through Skinwalker Ranch, being the owner there for some time, the US government program with OSAP. He was rumored to have put money into, and we'll probably get to this, his own facility for the receiving of material / a craft, which we believe was from Lockheed Martin. Is that right? It was going to be from Lockheed Martin.
Yes, and
he touches on that, or well, doesn't. Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah, and he also discusses sort of like the origins of OSAP during that interview. He clarifies a few things about the Skinwalker Ranch and why he left. He also talks about consciousness and how he already proved, he says he has proof that you survived your container. I think that in what he says about other topics gives you a better idea of the philosophy he has about this whole thing. And in the first interview that he gave, he did talk about the aerospace people as heroes and all of this stuff. And he said that he would buy stock. So he has that mentality of a person inside of those circles and those bubbles. And I think that the majority of people who come from that world don't really care about just regular folks. And therefore, I don't think they really understand what regular folks are after or what they're interested in. That's my opinion, though. But I don't know if you agree or disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about regular folks, but I'm just Scottish, so there's lots to dislike about people in general. So another big thing, though, to bear in mind with Bigelow is he moved into this field of the afterlife consciousness. His son and grandson both died in their early 20s through drug addiction, and then the demons that came along with that. And that really pushed him to explore what is the afterlife, proof of the afterlife, consciousness. He had that essay competition. He goes into great detail in this interview on the prizes. Jeffrey Mishlove famously, for some people who know it, won that essay contest, and those essays were to prove that yes, there is an afterlife, and here's the reasons why. I've seen some commentary on the live chat there. Hi to everyone who's watching live, and like and comment, all that shit. Remember, folks. But yeah, leave your thoughts. But the fact is, Bigelow, we don't know what that proof is necessarily. Some folks in there are saying it's clairvoyance, and he does clear up that there are mediums and there are remote viewers that are actually very good. How many or what that percentage is, who knows? But Bigelow has really personal motives and motivation for how, and his wife passed away, someone's mentioned, for maybe where he is in this topic. And I don't think that can be written off. So it always has to be kind of put in as a point of reference. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Can we play the clip where he talks about the whole surviving your container? Is that okay with you?
No.
Since ultimately is responsible for everything in the universe that you can think of. Everything.
Consciousness is here before the universe is here, you think?
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
that's
No,
okay.
you
All
opened
right.
up the
All
box.
right.
You know, wait a second. Okay. First of all, we have proof that you survived your container, which is a huge friggin' step for people to digest that. If you have certain religious backgrounds, or you're a confirmed staunch atheist, or maybe a staunch agnostic kind of person, you can't digest this. It doesn't. It's very difficult to swallow it and try to understand it. If you're a researcher, and extensively, it really matters a lot. And also, if you've had demonstrations, personal demonstrations and exhibitions of things, it really helps. And sometimes you recall what you witnessed and what you saw, and you just say, did that really happen? Yeah, it really happened. Those things really happened. You know, multiple different kinds of things. The consciousness aspect is that we have on the table over here the results from a contest that we initiated in 2021. It took the entire year. And it was about proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the survival of permanent bodily death is real.
That we go on.
And so you become a function of thought. And so you say, well, how is that possible without a body, without a container? That's impossible. It's not.
My question is, because there are many documented cases of people who, like, there's this case of a little girl who, in a portion of her first years of life, she was speaking in different languages, and that was really strange, right? There are cases like that, and I'm sure that because, as you said, Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove was the one who won the contest from Bigelow, and he just had to go to his catalog, I guess, to talk about some of the cases that he's investigated over the years. But to me, actual proof that there's life after death, I don't think that that has been achieved yet. I don't think we do have that yet. I think we have, just like the UFO topic, a lot of circumstantial evidence and people who experience things, who talk about them. But in terms of hard evidence, like physical evidence and documentation and all that, other than stories, there isn't real proof yet. Would you agree there?
Yes. I was going to say exactly that what we have is testimony, strong testimony. I think there are some anecdotes and evidence from people that are fascinating, especially when you hear of folks who wake up in operating rooms and are above their body. When they see things happening, they can describe things that were going on in the room that they shouldn't have been able to see. Leslie Kane's got a fascinating book and documentary on this too. I get a little bit scared of the after death stuff. I'm not into the whole ghost spirits thing because it scares me. Always had since a kid. So it's not that I don't believe, I just tend not to watch a lot of that stuff. And it's harrowing as well. I remember in the Leslie Kane documentary, I think one of the very early pieces is someone who gets caught, it's like kayaking or something like that, and they end up stuck upside down in a river, and they essentially drown, and they're underwater for like 6 or 7 minutes. 6, 7, sorry folks. It's so up all the time now. They're underwater for quite a while, and then from there they pass away and they're revived, and it's crazy, all of this stuff. So I completely believe it. I do think a lot of people bullshit, and let's use the G word, the grift, on the whole clairvoyancy medium stuff. There are so many bullshitters with that.
Oh, bro,
Pavel,
it's
there's a woman behind you with grey hair.
It's millennia long, that grifting
Yeah.
on that.
Oh, 100%.
Millennia.
Yeah. You know, did you have a grandma? Yeah, she's still alive. Yeah, but did she have a grandma? Yeah, she did. Ah, well, that's, you know, okay, it's so easy. So yeah, I think it's interesting because he makes a statement. I've got some notes on it. He says we're getting it. He talks about consciousness, spirituality, and he says we're getting away from the UFO conversation, but actually we're not. We're really not. We're really not. And he says that a few times. He talks about in this kind of section here, because Knapp asks him, was consciousness there before the universe? And correct me if you pick this up any differently, but what he essentially says is, well, you know, the Big Bang theory is just a theory, it's not fact. And he talks about the missing parts of said theory. He talks about what dark matter might actually be. He says he thinks he knows. My understanding from what he says then is, we only know about 5% of the energy in the universe, what it is. The other 95% is missing. So from what I'm putting together, the other 95% is consciousness. And that's what the universe is made up of, this energy field. I think you could liken it really easily to Star Wars and the Force. Essentially, he's saying this is all, the missing stuff is everything. It's what we are connected to. And I've often said, from what I believe personally right now, it seems like what a soul is the universe scoops a little cup of itself, throws it into this body, this human body, this container. You experience life in your own unique perspective, and at the end of it, you go back into that ocean. That's the way it kind of makes sense to me. That seems to be what Bigelow's saying too. And then we know, not to go off on a tangent, the UFO conversation obviously gets into some of the idea that some entities don't have souls, and they're very jealous of the fact we do have a soul and we have free will. Yeah, that's pretty interesting for me. So it was interesting, but like you say, it, for me, it would stop short of proof. And do I believe Bigelow has heard more behind the scenes? Absolutely, 100%, but not what he's saying publicly. So completely similar to the UFO topic.
You know, I suspect that there's also, or could be, a more occult element to these conversations, and people don't really like to talk about that publicly as much, especially the more powerful ones. Who knows why, right? But you know, for me, it's just as easy to try and talk about consciousness or the existence of a soul amongst scientists than amongst my family. It's always the same outcome either way, because whenever you start talking about these topics, you never reach any agreements. You start probably yelling at each other, as Thanksgiving happens sometimes, and it's always like that. Sorry about Pachita. She doesn't shut up.
That's all right. It's pissing rain where I am now as well, so hopefully people can't hear it. I've got a good mic, so with all those millions,
Impossible to reach an agreement, you know, about that topic.
See, on the whole consciousness thing, though, what is your kind of one line on what is consciousness? What does it mean?
Woo. As I tell you, it's a hard one to answer, but to me, I guess it depends on your upbringing, on your what your parents believed. That's what you grew up with, and that's what you feel the most familiar with. But it depends on your geographical location, because it's not the same me growing up in Mexico with a Catholic family that commemorates the Day of the Dead on November the 2nd, for example, and we believe in we believe in death in a certain way, and we think that our ancestors come back to visit us every November 2nd. That is very different from, for example, a perspective from somebody who lives in the Middle East, for example, who believe in jinn, and they have very different ideas about women, about children, about everything, you know? So that entire concept of consciousness could be misconstrued as either believe in God, for example, or just a combination of cells and atoms that created humanity and sentient life. I do think there is evidence, scientific evidence, that consciousness or awareness, the perception of reality, is non-local. And there is also evidence, scientific evidence, that we are that there is a way in which we can entangle ourselves, our minds, to create an outcome of something that we want collectively. I think that we do it consistently every day without realizing that we're doing it, because there are a lot of control systems that have been put in place since religions were created, essentially, to make us think that we just have this 3D reality that we experience, and there's nothing beyond that, really. And I think that that is a mistake, because that has thwarted our understanding of the perception of reality and of consciousness. And I think that the sooner that people understand that, and in terms of the scientific evidence that I tell you, there's multiple different scientists who throughout history have run experiments. Currently, there are like Dr. Julian Mosbridge, Dean Radin, all of these people who have conducted experiments and have had positive outcomes that tell them that, yeah, consciousness is non-local. There is quantum entanglement between us, and we do create our reality as we go along, just existing collectively. Jacobo also, there's a hemisync as well from the Monroe Institute, which is a very common exercise amongst psychophysiologists that has existed for decades, that helps people just get on the same level in consciousness and connects them too. Those are like just like sets of evidence that there is something to it, but defining consciousness as something, I think, is impossible.
So the answer to my question was no, you can't. Thanks, Pavel.
Yep. Yep.
After that rant.
Yep.
But no, I get what you mean. You almost have to talk around it, don't you? And it's one of those that no one can say, yes, that's right, or no, you're wrong, because we don't know. And I totally agree with you on the concept of non-locality. Again, the idea of like a radio doesn't have the music inside of it, or the news, or the weather, or the guy reporting it. They don't have that. You tune into a frequency and pick it up from elsewhere. And that's probably what we are. Just in your brain is that receiver, and then it translates the message, and this is what we kind of do from here. So, but what I found really interesting, did you notice at the end of the podcast that they mentioned the address to send a question in, but you had to write?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So they put the address on at the end to say, send your questions handwritten to the Bigelow podcast. I loved that, and I have done that. So I wrote a letter today and sent it off to Vegas.
That's nice.
So yeah, I sent Bigelow a copy of my book. So my book, Pavel, Atlas of Unidentified Flying Objects. You have done that a few times. So I genuinely sent Bigelow a copy of the book, and I've sent a question as well. I think that's a nice kind of gimmick that two gentlemen.
You've sold 2 million copies so far, right?
Oh, in the US, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they were giving it out to all the ICE guys when they were recruiting them as part of the goodie bag, Pavel.
You need a brick. This is it.
Yeah, when you get pulled up at Comic Con, that's what they were. They were all reading my book and saw you. So yeah, it's consciousness is really interesting. But I've essentially asked the question to those guys of how do you go from a time where we get some form of confirmation, the president or a premier somewhere gives that kind of, gives that statement, we are not alone, etc. How do you get from that to then telling the public, by the way, you're a soul in a container, that you survive the life afterwards, and this is what happened? How do you get there? What is the road to that? Because that just seems like two completely different questions. But Bigelow's telling us it's connected, it's all the same thing.
That would mean, if that happens, that would mean that every religious leader in the world is going to agree with the public being told that. And I don't think that's going to happen. That's impossible because of the mainly philosophical differences of historical facts that everybody interpreted differently, depending on the religion that you profess. I think that the closest any religion has gotten to these ideas in the most neutral kind of way probably is Buddhism. But I don't know. That's a difficult one because, first of all, about half of people are not even going to pay attention to whatever is told to them, if this is told. And half of people are probably going to be in complete denial because whatever they're told is more than likely going to challenge their own worldview. And humans are not good at like sudden change like that. It's historically, it's been proven over and over and over. And I think that a revelation of this magnitude like that, it's not going to go well. I don't think. Not all people have gone through the process of gnosis or are aware that or can tell right from wrong. There's people that just don't give a shit. There's people that just want to live in their own bubbles and go about their lives and just enjoy life, not ask these deep questions that probably they don't even care about.
The Bigelow also mentioned that when he owned the ranch, he gave Lukatsky gave them instructions not to ignore anything. And he said anything mystifying at all, they were to go down the path and explore it and see where it went. So again, Lukatsky, who I don't know if folks consider him a nuts and bolts guy, more of a woo guy, maybe a bit of both. Bigelow saying Lukatsky was very much, if you feel there is something worth exploring, don't get caught up in the old UFO tropes, nuts and bolts, flying saucers, little grey aliens. If you think there's something there, go after it, study it, let's record it. So that's a really interesting perspective to get as well.
Yeah, it is. And, that's why I do respect what people like Lukatsky and Kelleher have been doing for a while, because they don't just close themselves out to just UFOs. They understand that there is like just phenomena going on around us, and they're interested in every lead that they can get. And I do respect that, because for the longest time, Andy, I always judged. I had a preconceived notion of this word paranormal or supernatural too. That it was always necessarily, for me, whenever I heard that word, it was like, this is science fiction. This is not real. And I always ran away from it, right? But as I read Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, for example, and other books that have been talking about that, now I'm not so sure that I consider those words like forbidden or taboo. I'm a little more open about it, because just to give you just one example that is close to me, people within my family have experienced really strange things. When my uncle passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, it was my cousin, who historically, she's always said that she has seen people just as they pass away and dreams of them and speaks to them. She told us that she spoke to my uncle. And how do you fucking explain that? That seems like a ghost kind of story, right? And it happens to people. There's no reason for my cousin to just lie about that shit. You know, it's no incentive at all. She just goes about her life and doesn't bother anyone. She's not famous or anything. She can't be canceled or anything like that. So, um, what do you think?
So, my dad is not into the whole ghost UFO stuff, etc., at all. And he phoned me a couple of months ago. Sorry, now I've shared this maybe once on the podcast, I think, before. I'll tell the story though. So he was staying at a friend's house for like a week or so when he was working, and he was in bed one night. He lives out in Australia, so he's out in the kind of middle of nowhere. He's used to snakes, spiders, creepy crawlies, lizards, all the kind of stuff that comes with living in Australia. And he says he was like in bed, half asleep, but not completely asleep. And he says he felt like he was lying on his back and he felt something land on his chest, but like really, really heavy and hard. He immediately thought snake, a snake's been on the ceiling or something, or a massive spider, but it was pretty heavy. So he jumped up, threw the covers off, and he's looking about the room, and he said there's not a lot in the room. It was like you would be able to see if something had scarpered away into a corner. There wasn't many places to hide. It was like a spare room, and he was a little bit freaked out by it, but he thought it was an animal of some sort and it had gone away. So anyway, the next morning he's down for breakfast, and he never said anything about it. And it was a few days later, and again at night he would feel similar things in the room, and he thought it was really, really strange. And it was one of the last days he was there. They asked him, like, just first thing in the morning, Pavel, how's things? And my dad basically said, I'm so tired, I've barely slept because I keep feeling stuff in the room and something on my chest. And the wifey basically said their son had died years before, and that was his room. And she was like, if you look outside, you'll see the motorbike that he had his accident on still in the backyard. And she went, we feel him around the house all the time. It's just him. My dad shit himself. And he was like, if you told me that, and they were like, well, what would you want us to say? It's a haunted house. And he's not a guy that's into that kind of stuff whatsoever. And I was like, oh, so that's like horrifying to me. So yeah, like, and again, I always say the same thing. I don't want to see anything. I very much believe it. Passed away family members, all that kind of stuff. Best of luck to them. But yeah, not for me, that kind of stuff. You're on mute, by the way, before you jump back in.
Sorry, I was getting a call. It's all settled. Somebody in the comments is saying that your dad shit a brick. I'm like, he shit Andy's book, apparently.
My dad couldn't tell you the name of my book. Not that he's not proud, but that's how little interest he has in all this kind of stuff. So yeah, but no, like I'm fully into all that kind of stuff, and it's an interesting segue that this second episode was going into. I was trying to see if I've got a few notes on some other stuff as well. Have you got anything to add on that before I mention anything else on this episode?
Just looking forward to what comes next from Bigelow, but I don't know how, for example, people like Brown and Dylan Borland and David Grusch would feel about his opinions from the billionaire's perspective, because these guys are like trying to get the information out for the people, and it kind of seems like Robert and other folks within the top of the disclosure movement, they seem to have different interests that are more national security and aerospace friendly kind of goals. And that's just like the question that I have. How do each other feel about what they're doing? Because everybody seems to be putting something out, but everybody's doing that at their own tune, it seems. It's not like, okay, guys, let's do this. Everybody together. It's like, no. It's a little chaotic, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think the reason you don't see a lot of that is you would, if you sat down, just pick a name, Matthew Brown, and you said, Matthew, be really honest. who's bullshitting in this topic in your opinion and who's not, and he laid out the names, it would throw a whole bunch of cats amongst various pigeons. And I think you could speak to Elizondo and ask him the same, Stratton and ask him the same. And I think, for example, there's one to hone in on. A lot of folks are expecting Jay Stratton's book to expose something about Elizondo.
Or
And it may not, or contradict something. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean one or the other is lying. It's difficult because, believe it or not, I'm not in the intelligence community, folks. I'm not that intelligent to be in the intelligence community. Pavel, I don't think you are. Maybe you are. Nope. Who fucking knows? I've never met you. You could be CIA, FBI, NSA, KFC. Could be any of the KFC. Yeah, could be any of the above, right? But all these different folks, I'm not going to pretend that I know these people. And I think that's where sometimes folks in this topic can really, really easily get lost when they get a little bit of UFO celebrity, or they are easily manipulated and folks take them in and they then think they're part of something. And that's where you hear about folks going on about these special group chats and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, anything I've ever been exposed to is pretty basic. There are so many people who talk about all this stuff they've heard in the background, and I've not, but I tend to stay out of it. So it's the whole intelligence community thing makes it difficult to pinpoint who's telling the truth, who's lying. Are some of the people telling the truth actually doing it for the wrong reasons? Are some of the people lying doing it for the right reasons? Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? It's really difficult to work out in this whole topic, and that's where I think people just have to keep a bit of an open mind and not go too all in on anything. Used the example, didn't we, a few weeks ago, Pavel, about Grusch. For a lot of folks, Grusch right now is the Batman. He's the hero in this story, but we don't know where we're going to be in a few years. And that's not me saying anything against Grusch. I am on the Grusch train right now, but I'm more than happy or expected to get off at some point at disappointing station and wait on the next train coming along, because that's what tends to happen. We're only going off of what the history of this topic and other topics like it show. So yeah, it's always going to be one that throws up a lot of opinion, a lot of ego. I don't even know what my initial point was there.
And here's what I think you cannot do, or the road that you cannot take, is if you get in this topic and you want to actively seek out what's going on, a bad idea would be to probably say yes to every single one of those chats that you're invited to, and create this cult of personality about the people that you're in the chats with. At a certain point, you even blindly trust them, and eventually you realize that they're just human like everybody, and they have different interests like everybody. Does that mean that they're necessarily nefarious? I don't think so. Depending, if there's like enough like actual evidence and not just hints, maybe you can build a case around whoever you pick from the entire movement. But I think that this has more to do with human error than it actually has to do with something extremely nefarious coming out of. I know that there's a select few that may be doing nefarious things and for either the government or the quote unquote deep state, but the majority of people are just being themselves, and some of them are used. I spoke about in previous episodes that I did how I fell for some of these tactics, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Like I was very new at this, and I didn't know really what I was getting myself into. I learned from that, and now I've taken different precautions to avoid that in the future. But getting balls deep in bed with all of those people is probably the worst idea if you want to get in the topic. The best idea is just to, be part of the community and hear everybody out. And if you have a difference of opinion or politics or philosophy, what are you expecting if you don't want for the other person's ideology to overcome yours? You still have to live in the same planet. You want to Do you want them to not exist or something like that? It just makes no sense to me, you know, like
Yeah. See on the Bigelow stuff, I think this is where I was trying to go with that. Where he is a really rich guy. And personally, I don't hold this against people, right? See the whole idea of someone's a billionaire, so they must be evil. Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But there's plenty of evil people who aren't billionaires, you know. So it swings and roundabouts. Just because someone's successful, they get called out a lot. Bigelow has clearly been exposed because of his connections, because of his money, because of how and who he has been able to fund over the years and decades. You learn things, you find out things, you get connected, don't you, in different ways. So Bigelow will have his own agenda, and does that mean that's wrong? And I think you're totally right that the way Bigelow would approach this topic, and because of what he is exposed to and what he knows, is probably he probably sees some of the stuff as not beneath him, but he doesn't really bother about it and doesn't care. And he probably does understand there are certain things that are real, legitimate national security concerns. So I don't need to agree, but I do understand why Bigelow sits, and especially towards the end of this, I thought about you, Pavel, because of the conversation we had recently, where he talks about the private contractors and stuff, and he says
heroes.
He says Knapp says to Bigelow that they should be given a clean bill of health, given the work they have done for the American people. And as someone who's not the American people, they've done nothing for me necessarily. Bigelow says, free them up. We would be lucky to have the work they have done and the knowledge and the progress they have got on the table to use, but that's not going to happen without basically those, what do you call it, amnesties and whatnot being granted, and maybe some bad people get away with having done some bad things. That might just have to be, how it is. And that's something I think they're going into in episode 3, gatekeepers and private contractors and stuff like that, potentially. But I get that. So I get why he would see that as it seems to me Bigelow's stance is, and tell me if you got this, Pavel, give the people confirmation, give the people their disclosure of, we're not alone. Like he said himself, you know, there are entities amongst us. There are beings coming here from other places that are not human, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, whatever they might be, and they have different technologies, which he alludes that we've actually really struggled with reverse engineering. He says he doesn't want to talk about it, and he just says it's a lot more difficult than people realize. So again, hinting at, we've got stuff, but we've not made that much progress with it. He then, I think, has the idea of give people the confirmation we're not alone, but then the rest of it, they probably keep. And he seems to have his reasons as to why we don't get access to X, Y, and Z, which we wouldn't anyway. There's no such thing as a full capital D disclosure, no matter how many YouTube personalities want to bang on about it.
Yeah, I do agree there. And I don't know, man. For me, it's a lot simpler to try and understand. It's just what they're trying to do, and especially Bigelow. I don't know how deep the knowledge on whatever lands and whatever crashes goes. I don't know if the lore is right. For me, the only things that have made sense so far are the things that I've experienced myself. The other parts, it's gonna be, I think, if a lot of the more outlandish stuff turns out to be real, as I told you, man, I think it's gonna be difficult for some people. Yeah, it's a long conversation to have, and many more questions will arise inevitably. Yeah.
I've got a slight sidebar question on
go ahead.
that whole crash retrieval stuff, right? I posted this the other day, and there it is there. So it was mentioned on, was it the Grusch podcast? And we're going to talk about that with Phil. I can't remember what it was, but something got me thinking that, are we assuming too much when we see a body inside a recovered craft and we conclude that species built that craft? What if the craft has one origin and the occupants perhaps have another? if there are really different intelligences, multiple different intelligences, but recurring technological characteristics, is the common denominator the beings or the technology? So again, this was off the back of, we have all these alleged different crashed vehicles. The only bodies that seem to be recovered or ever talked about are greys. You never hear about mantis beings being recovered, or lizards, or any of these other weird and wonderful entities. We don't take an Orban and Shackles and Casper the Friendly Ghost along a corridor. It always seems to be one type, but different types of craft crash. So is there some kind of intergalactic rent-a-car type place where beings get craft from and use them for whatever? Or are they building these? That doesn't make sense.
Also, no crashed triangles. A lot of sightings, but no crashed triangles that I know of. That's also really strange. Yeah, why are the, for example, alleged encounters with Nordic beings are always like interactions, and they're never like in those crashes or dead or something? That makes me think that probably if they're real, the Greys are more like sort of robots of some
Disposable.
type. Yeah.
More akin or prone to crashes, less in control. Like the old Kodak cameras for those of a certain vintage, where you would go and buy it for one party, take 50 photographs on it, take it to the shop, and then throw it in the bin.
Maybe that's what an AI robot looks like in the far future. Who knows?
Would make sense. But yeah, just that idea around that, and I think it came from the Grusch conversation, that what if the craft have one unique origin, and the beings themselves, you just, at some point, someone comes along and goes, Earth, sounds like a Rick and Morty episode. Earth, you've now unlocked level 66. Congratulations, you now have access to the UFOs. So do you want to pick your UFO of choice, a bit like Mario Kart? Do you want to customize it? This is what you guys get for now, and then you'll unlock the next one at level 100. Don't crash these into buildings or each other. That would be wonderful.
I wonder how many times this experiment has taken place, right? In previous civilizations, if they existed. How many failed experiments is the question, right?
Yeah, like the Matrix. How many times has this happened, this simulation been run?
Yeah. Can we get into Dave's interview? Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Let's start with this, because I think this was probably the wildest thing that he said. But let's acknowledge, people were expecting for him to be in some sort of interview or write an op-ed or do something, right? Like that meme of the kid with a stick. Come on, do something. And he did. And he did say a lot of what people expected him to say. I just wonder, could that be enough for some kind of proof to be released by the government? Because clearly there's a push for to the president, so he can like give them the authority to release whatever they have, videos, whatever type of evidence. That's my question, but let's watch this first. Here it is.
Pilots or occupants of these craft, to your knowledge, been taken alive?
Yes, and I know people who have had direct interactions in a detainment situation, which sounds very Star Trek and sounds very crazy, but it is true. And I talked to a cabinet member, a former cabinet member, about that, who directly worked the issue for a particular former vice president. You can guess which one. Darth Vader.
And were they able to communicate?
Subtle.
Yes. And it is true that some sort of consciousness communication, of course, people call it telepathy. I cannot begin to tell you how it works, but there is some sort of communication like that. And even friends of mine that were on retrievals felt that kind of communication as they approached the vehicle when they were doing cordoning it off, waiting for transport. How that works, what that means, I certainly don't know. I'm as curious as the average viewer on your show on how that works. And it does feel very Star Trek to me. I have no personal experience with anything like that that's outside of my normal, human experience. But that is indeed, what people have experienced in the government with these things.
What do you think of that, man?
So, to preface, and I'll try and keep myself on track here, I enjoyed your interview with Daniel Elizondo, who I do not believe is any relation to Lou, and James Faulkner, Neon Galactic. You just had it up the other. I legitimately listened.
James Falk,
sorry. My bad. They were really good, and Daniel wasn't too happy at Dr. Phil being the vehicle for Grusch to speak on. And I text you at the time when I was watching it and said, totally disagree with that. I respect the opinion. I don't respect everyone's opinion, actually, because people's opinions can be wrong. But I that's fair point from Daniel to say that he doesn't like Phil, blah, 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 blah. However, Dr. Phil has a massive platform. Dr. Phil, regardless of him being a real doctor or not, I don't think people seem to say he's not.
He has a PhD in psychology. Yeah.
So he's not a real doctor. No, so it sounds like he is, kind of, chiropodist. But regardless, he's a massive celebrity. He has friends with Trump. You make all these points on the show. I don't see much wrong at this point now with people like Grusch going on major platforms and talking about this topic, especially in a serious way. And I'll be really honest, I would be the first one here, folks, to say Dr. Phil's terrible at this. The questions were awful. It's not really good. The angle's poor. He's actually really fair. And he says at the beginning, show me the craft, show me the beings.
Yep.
He's not saying anything untoward or unrealistic. And again, if Dr. Phil is mates with Dr. Trump and Trump's telling Phil, go and handle this, go and chat about this, here's access to the tranches early and stuff like that. Phil's not coming out. I would be more wary if he came out and basically said, oh, these drops are great, aren't they? The government's doing such a good job. He's not. He's came out. He's criticised them. He's talked about the decades-long cover-up. He says we're being lied to. He says there's better stuff out there. And he says, show me the craft, show me the beings, show me what we're being told exists. I can't disagree with anything really I've heard Phil say in regards to the UFO topic in the few weeks, and I totally appreciate. I was checking this the other day, Pavel, and I've got some of the basic numbers right on a different spreadsheet here. I might not have it instantly in front of me, but Dr. Phil's numbers for his usual videos on YouTube are in like the 10,000 to 80,000 range. He has the odd video, the odd one that hits 100,000 if it's a really controversial topic. The Grusch interview a couple of days ago was already at over 250,000 in a couple of days. His other UFO stuff he's done, like the Path to Disclosure and whatnot, has hit 150, 180,000. Yes, there are numbers on this, but it's being covered and it's being covered well. My only issue with this whole interview was the videos they were using constantly to show on screen from the recent drops, because they are almost all bollocks, bar the zippy fast one that moves away quick. But yeah, I've got no problem at all with Phil doing this. And if there's going to be a slow drip disclosure or a movement forward in this topic, for me, this is just what in 2026 that would look like. People like this, whatever Kardashian sisters got a podcast, whoever else, these are the people who are going to get them on the platforms. And do you stick David Grusch on my podcast or yours? No doubt, Pavel, we would give him some of the best interviews he's done and ask some of the best questions, and we would get 100,000 views. They'd be our biggest ever interviews. Would we touch the sides on a Dr. Phil or a Kardashian or a Rogan? No. So that's the platforms that these messages have to go out on, and I think it's been done really well.
Especially because they seem to be just using Dr. Phil as the guy to lead on the communication side of this. So yeah, it makes sense that it was Dr. Phil and, for example, not Jake Tapper, who postponed an interview with David. And let's just be clear, it doesn't matter which interview he would have done. It would have been the Tapper one or the Dr. Phil one, which was what he did. He would have said the same things, I think.
Yeah, Grusch doesn't deviate too much from his message, but he does add to it each time. I think some of the comments on this, especially around detainment, a lot of folks, when he made those comments, have jumped to the Skinny Bob footage and have tried to put those together and be like, is that, have you also seen the one that's the Victor, the alien, where people tried to say that was legitimate, where the alien has the really deep voice and it's like, humanity is doomed. It's like a trailer
Oh
for
yeah,
a movie.
that's a CGI thing that they did. Yeah.
But you can tell people that, but some folks don't believe it. But a lot of folks are jumping to the Skinny Bob one particularly as potentially being legitimate. A detainment situation, capturing one of these things, communicating. If you've seen Disclosure Day, I think we're past spoiler territory now.
Oh
There is
yeah.
a clip on Disclosure Day, which is one of the best bits of the whole movie, to be fair, where you see a being being detained and
And
interrogated
tortured.
and tortured. And
Yep.
it's pretty good in terms of, when I say realism, about as good as it can get. I'm sure Jon Stewart will have shared it on his X and said it was real. No offense, John. But yeah, so that was interesting for me, the detainment conversation. And
And
that's
that
going to get people
apparently
talking.
Dick Cheney was there in one of those. That was subtle, as I said. He called him Darth Vader again, but
But
yeah, that
remember,
was
Darth
wild.
Vader at the end of the movie, again, spoiler alert for Star Wars folks, turned good again. So I
60
don't think
years
we got
later.
that. Yeah, we never got that from Cheney, did we? Picked up the Emperor and
No,
threw him in the fire. And maybe that's the
no.
analogy. Cheney was Vader. Who's the Emperor? There's always two.
Ooh.
Remember, Star
Yeah.
Wars folks? Always
I
two.
would point my finger toward one of the oldest families, probably.
Well, what about Stephen Miller? Is he like the Darth Maul? Is he rose up as their
Oh, that guy.
he's got the double-sided lightsaber now. So yeah. But no, it was a really interesting interview. I've got 5 points from it that were interesting, if you want me to read those out.
Yep. And we'll watch a couple more clips after.
Yeah, I'll probably cover some of the clips on this. So Grusch claiming there are 25 to 100 recovered non-human craft. He tries to be deliberately vague because he can't go into detail, but between 25 and 100, we can settle on 50. He discusses occupants and whether living beings have ever been recovered, which he goes into the detainment details. He mentions, because Phil says to him, could you take me to one of these facilities? I'm paraphrasing. And he says, yeah, we could take a trip out west. And he alludes at something apparently too large to move. And this is something that's now, for the last, 18 months to 2 years, been a big topic of conversation in the UFO conversation. And that's one we should come back to. Number 4, he suspects much of the phenomenon may not actually be extraterrestrial. Grusch has always fell down. I think he's almost pushed the conversation away from ET, not discounted it, but almost like, yeah. And I seem to get this impression from a lot of folks now. The ET side of this is perhaps we have been visited very sparingly from anything you would consider from another planet. That if it's happened, it has literally been a single handful of times in civilization, and that most of what we're dealing with isn't traversing the planets to come here. That's the way I kind of get from these folks like Grusch, who are almost like, a little bit flippant about it. And number 5, he says, and we can talk about some of those videos that have been shown online, disclosure could define Trump's legacy, and he publicly pressures the administration to act.
Stephen Miller specifically.
Yes.
Yeah. And he tells Marco Rubio to help out Stephen Miller, because we got to remember, Grusch allegedly brought those 40 people from these programs to the Senate, and the Senate got that disclosure. And there were certain things that happened. And I've been trying to corroborate this with more sources. What is being talked about is that when Marco Rubio was supposed to meet with the late Mark McCandlish, who is known for the whole ARB story and the Flux liner. So sorry, I lost my train of thought. We got a visitor. Let me show him. Hey, Dan.
Mr.
Hi,
Cleary.
guys. What's happening?
How you doing, man? Welcome.
I'm good. Continue the conversation. I'm all the way in. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to talk about this quite a bit. The Grusch stuff has blown me away. So
Yeah. And we didn't have you either on Doomer Friday last Friday, so it's nice to have you here again.
Yeah.
So where was I? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit.
Something about a flux liner or something like that.
Oh yeah, when Marco Rubio was supposed to meet with McCandlish, a few days before that, McCandlish turned up dead. He was shot. There's people who contest whether he did it himself or if it was somebody else. But apparently that event was really scary for people like Marco Rubio. And that might be one of the reasons why he doesn't really want to talk about this anymore. Last week, we saw a clip of him saying that he's no longer on the topic, but he asked people to take it seriously. Well, he also said that he sometimes used it as a distraction when asked about other topics, which was kind of weird. But for me, that's it. It's people from the Senate already saw something clearly, thanks to Grusch, and they're scared. They seem to be scared or avoiding some of this.
Cleary?
Haven't they seen stuff for the last couple of years? It feels like they've been pretty informed for quite a while and haven't really moved on it as much as we would have liked.
Why
I
do you
get the
think that
impression.
is?
See, on that, just to add to Dan's point, I get the impression that a lot of what they say publicly seems to be behind what they know or talk about behind closed doors. And that's where I've not understood. And this is where I've had this issue with the Age of Disclosure documentary needing to be a thing. Why do you have to make a documentary to tell all the folks that you have access to anyway what's going on, what's happening, and that they should speak to each other? It seems like a really, really long-winded way to do that and really pointless. I've never understood that.
I think that's a way to get the public involved, forces our leaders to kind of move on. I think it's the point of the film. I mean, otherwise, like you said, everyone's already informed, so you got to get the public involved to put pressure on people.
Which did kind of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank.
Okay, so let's show a couple more clips that I want to show you guys. There's this one.
You have also seen pictures or video or both of life forms that are piloting these craft as well. You've seen the cadavers.
Yeah. Some of the craft we've assessed that are likely drones, and some of the craft that we've recovered, it is true in some of the lore in the public space, we've recovered vehicles that were empty and the pilots were not there. That actually is a true historical statement. But yes, some of it was piloted, and I always find, even though it is my reality, I always feel uncomfortable talking about that because it is such a ontologically shocking thing to talk about the pilots. But what do you know? They look just like what people have reported seeing, like credible witnesses. You look at the Ariel School event in 1994, where 80 school children in Zimbabwe saw what we would call in pop culture speak small gray aliens, exactly the way you think. And what do you know? Some of them look exactly as reported by credible observers that have nothing to gain and everything to lose by discussing their experience.
That's a wild one because I was just thinking about this morning about the Ariel School event. You just said, Andy, that a handful of times we've probably been visited. I think this was probably one of these times when it happened with the children. And I don't know if you guys remember what the overall theme of this messaging was, from the beings to the kids, to just not give in to technology, take care of the environment, all of this stuff. And right now, what is happening? AI is like taking over. The tech companies don't really give a shit about enhancing technology even more than it has been enhanced already. It's almost as if we did not listen to the cautions by these beings, and just because they were talking to kids, or because we don't most of us don't believe in this as a reality. I just wanted to point that out because I think it's an important point.
Those beings were the original Greta Thunbergs, and she's
Greta.
annoying, and I don't listen to her. So yeah, see, on the Grusch thing, right? What do you think about this? I want to hear him talk about detail of what he has seen in those videos. So he's really nodding along when Phil says, you know, he's obviously saying yes, you've seen videos. And every time I hear Phil speak, I just think of Adam Ray, and that was the comedian you guys were talking about on your show, Pavel, because Adam Ray does a wonderful impression of Dr. Phil. So I almost see Adam Ray as the original and Dr. Phil as the tribute act.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think with this, surely Grusch could go into some detail on, for example, in one video we have, there's a crash that's happened, and in the video, it's been taken by some military folks who turned up on the scene. When is the video from? Is it from the 50s, 60s? Is it from more recent? That's one question I would love to know, especially if he can answer things like 25 to 100 craft. Okay, when was the first that you're aware that we have recovered, that you have evidence or proof of, not that you've heard of or seen a document like Magenta? You literally can see a video of it. What's the first? And then what's the most recent? Is it last month? Is it a few months ago? Is it years? Actually, the last one we recovered was 2010. I'd love to know that, but I would love him to go into some detail again of, for example, I've seen a detainment video where the being's on the table. You hear someone speaking in English, American accent, talking to the being's in distress. I would love him to go into some of those details, because surely those aren't national security concerns. If he can say he's seen video, what have you seen? Give us some detail, give us some examples of what's on those. And just to go a little bit further, is any of the stuff he has seen already out in the public? He doesn't have to tell us what, but just give us a nod that, yeah, there are some videos in the public which are 100% legitimate and people should pay attention to if they come across them.
Yep. Dan?
Completely. Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said, Andy. I think the stuff that he's even alluding to are the things that I've been like hoping to see since I was a kid. You know, that kind of proof, like a being in detainment, which sounds awful, but I want to see that more than anything. I mean, that would be mind blowing, and what that would do to like the public mindset and the public view of something like this would be, I mean, incomprehensible. It would move the needle quite a bit. But even seeing craft, even seeing like video of an actual recovery with a timestamp and some kind of data as to what are we looking at? When did this happen? How does this work? How do retrievals happen? Yeah, it can go a long way.
Again, like we kind of saw in Disclosure Day. Again, we're past the point of spoilers. The best bits of that movie for me were when you see the clips of the crash retrievals, the detainment of the beings, and it gives you a little glimpse. And I think the fact that you're not put in the scene, you're shown a recording of the video screen, you know, it's that kind of way. So that lack of clarity and perfect picture allows it to look a little bit more real. Just being described some of those scenes that we saw in that, I think would be a huge step forward. And this has been one of my big arguments around people who say the drops have been really good. And again, someone I respect massively, and I am a huge fan of, and who has infinitely more knowledge than me, Richard Dolan, is a big fan of the files that have dropped. But I'll speak for myself here. When Richard Dolan reads those files, they make a hell of a lot more sense to him than they do to me. It's like the dude in the Matrix when he reads the Matrix code and he's
an encyclopedia of UFOs.
Yeah. The dude reading the Matrix code, for me, it's numbers and letters and Chinese symbols mixed up. But you've got the guy in the chair going, I see woman in the red dress. I see agent. I see dude selling hot dogs on the corner. Dolan's reading those files going, this actually correlates with this. This reminds me of this. Let me pull this file out of here because they've mentioned this project. That's the first time that's been mentioned since. I don't have that. So for me, and I think it's fair to say, for 99% of the public, it's going to be a video. And right now, they see the videos, and the videos are shit. They're poor. There's almost nothing to them. I think of all the videos we've had so far, there's maybe 1 or two at a push, I would say, are particularly interesting. One of them's the one where you see the dot on the screen and it moves and then bang, it's gone.
Yep.
But could be really easily poo-pooed. That for me is stuff that we need to see more of to really move this forward.
Yeah. I think that for Dolan, I was going to say, some of the stories that I've heard on the tranches, I hate that word, especially the one
drops. Just say drops.
Yeah, especially the ones where the report from the FBI and ODNI agents are filed about the orbs really close to the helicopters. Those are, for me, the interesting ones. But it's, at the end of the day, it's also another story. It's not anything that, and I'm not putting in question people's credentials or their job or their credibility or anything like that. It's just, you're completely right, Andy. If you want to actually move the needle, people need to see documents. People need to see corroboration of documents that already were out there, but have been probably tried to be debunked over the years. And obviously material evidence or video evidence. And this is where I think the part of the eminent domain section of the UAPDA comes into play a little bit more too, because we already know that there's a lot of people within the community who already have some of these pieces of evidence. And they're often dismissed as not real or, other sort of prosaic explanation to them. But if there is some kind of confirmation that these pieces are real from official channels, from government, from the scientific community, that I think is also one of the things that could move the needle for this. Even if we don't see videos or a being, that stuff like an alloy that it's impossible that it was created here, that has some kind of other material that we don't know, or some kind of combination that you can only create, as Tom DeLonge said, in the vacuum of space. Stuff like that, but that can be proven. That's also important.
The Bigelow interview, they touch on that, him and Knapp, towards the end when they talk about Bigelow years ago coming up with those inflatable labs, whatever they want to call them, that they would be much cheaper. He says a 20th of the cost of the space station, for example. And then they talk about being able to use these to create or do experiments or, build in space. And they both kind of go, yeah, wouldn't that be interesting or good? So again, alluding to the fact some of these alloys or metals need to be made in a different environment than on Earth. Or at least, I suppose you could make it on Earth if you can create that environment.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
Dan?
No, I've nothing to add. I agree. Which parts were you talking about, Pavel, in particular? What pieces are you referring to?
Well, for example, I know that Gary Nolan has a bunch of different little materials that he studied over the years.
The drip. Yeah.
The Uba Tuba ones, and Chris Bledsoe's book. He talks about how Lou and Tom DeLonge took some of this angel dust that they call, and it disappeared.
Angel hair.
Angel hair, yeah, that's it.
Angel dust,
Angel
totally,
dust.
totally different.
Pavel,
A very different thing,
Pavel.
Pavel. I'm sure Tom DeLonge's done angel dust.
Pavel side business.
Business in the front, party in the back. Just kidding.
There you go.
So I heard that, and it's for me, that's sort of stuff like that. And I know that people, it's not just Gary. I'm pretty certain that people like Jacques Vallée also have their own private collection. Probably Hal Puthoff has some stuff as well. The Uba Tuba stuff also is very famous. The whole arts parts thing, at last year's SCU conference, there was a lot of talk about these parts that were taken to the place, and there was confusion of whether there was some kind of a tracker on there was and it's always very shady stuff that goes on when it comes to materials. I can tell you about this because I saw a video that I was shown by a very popular YouTuber in Mexico who he showed me a video of what he claims is an implant, and they have it like on a little tiny little flasky thing. And when you see it, it's like sort of gray in composition, and then it suddenly kind of changes like a chameleon changes its skin. And that was really strange to see. I don't know what that was, but the story behind it is that this was an implant that a person from Mexico had removed, and that there were people constantly pursuing this person to try and get that from this person. And this person went to this YouTuber and talked about it. They showed it to him, and he took it out of their hands. He paid good money for it. And it's always like really weird, sketchy stuff like this when it comes to like implants and materials and all that stuff. Impossible to really actually prove that it's a real implant, right? But just telling you what I saw, and it was strange.
What kind of people were approaching this person? Was it like government folks or just like scientists or
American suits?
Okay.
Specifically.
Very weird.
Yeah.
We also hear stories and reports of people who, when they have an implant removed, it just like disintegrates as soon as it gets out of the body, like self-destructs almost. I want to hear more about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
Again, in this day and age, when you've got News Nation who are quite happy to really push the sensational in a lot of ways, why can't someone with one of these implants volunteer to have one removed live on TV?
Sure. Great point.
From your lips, Andy, from your lips.
In the same way, I would love one of these orb summoners to do it live on TV. Again, I'm sure News Nation would pay for that. Live, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, clear sky, boom, summon the orbs.
So far, that's all secondhand.
Couple of people can sit around with iPads and sky scanner and satellite trackers, and they can look and go, nope, everything's clear up above, everything's good. That is a genuine orb you've summoned there, live on TV. No tomfoolery here. But
no, not a plane, not a plane.
No,
not a satellite.
No, not a drone.
Let's show one more clip from Grusch and talk about it.
So in terms of what my exposure was, I had folks from the retrieval program. I'll call it exfiltrate audiovisual evidence for me to see, both video and photos, and that was audiovisual evidence of the retrieved craft, some of the dead cadavers that were recovered. Call it the pilots, as I said in my interview with Nancy Mace, and of course I interviewed a ton of subjects all the way up to the cabinet White House level that had close personal participation in this subject. And of course, because I wasn't hands-on, so to speak, and saw this in person, I brought a lot of those people to the Intelligence Community Inspector General under the Biden administration, so they could hear it from the horse's mouth. They can get information on the locations of where this is being held, where the archives facilities are, where they hold all the program records, etc. And of course, this complaint was considered credible and urgent. Admiral Haynes was forced to send it to the Senate and House Intelligence Committees in summer 2022. And then I subsequently provided 11.5 hours of classified testimony to the Senate and House Intelligence Committees. Unfortunately, from what I understand, there was a little bit of fear in those committees, especially in the Senate, and they didn't open up some full field investigation. I think Mark Werner and Marco Rubio were a little nervous to really up the ante with the deep state that they were tackling. That's probably a longer discussion. And then, of course, the ICIG investigated it. And from what I understand, back channeled to me unofficially is Jake Sullivan in White House General Counsel Office basically told Tom Monheim, who was the Inspector General for the intelligence community under Biden, and his staff to stop. And they realized they were bumping into White House classified programs, something called special access programs. And eventually they were told to stop, from what I understand. And I would love for Mr. Monheim and Jake Sullivan, who's been in many interesting meetings about this subject. So I'd be curious what Mr. Sullivan has to say for himself when he was the National Security Advisor in his history on this topic. So once again, I hope Secretary Rubio is helping Stephen Miller at the White House, because I'm hearing mixed messages about Stephen Miller's seriousness, and I hope he understands how this will impact President Trump's legacy if this is botched.
Dude, that went a little bit under the radar. Did he just say that Sullivan blocked further investigation into this when Monheim was looking into it? He said that, right?
He kind of just said the White House in general. I don't know if he gave an actual name, unless I missed that.
Do you guys remember when Matthew Pines was so sure that there was going to be a coup de grace, and he said there was a prepared interview that was already recorded, that we would know who it was? I wonder if that's Sullivan.
Hard to know. Again, but also you don't know, are these things blocked? It's really easy to go conspiratorial. And again, I'm going to sit on or do devil's advocate here. You could go conspiratorial and they're blocking the UFO progress, disclosures being stonewalled again. Or was it just someone went, this UFO stuff's bullshit, stop looking at it, you're wasting my time, you're wasting money, I'm trying to deal with North Korea building uranium mines, I'm trying to deal with Russia messing about with this, I'm trying, and they've just went, stop this UFO shit. I imagine sometimes that just goes on. Unfortunately.
That makes sense. What do you think, Dan?
Doesn't mean it's right.
I'm mostly intrigued, and there's so much in that clip too, by the way. But I'm mostly intrigued by the fact that he said that basically someone snuck him video and photographs to prove to him what was going on, which makes me think that he probably still has those things somewhere and has shown other people those materials.
I mean, that should be one of, if I think about it, that could very well be a dead man's switch or part of it, right?
Definitely, I would think so. Sure.
Yeah.
And I have
Someone's
so that
asking,
means. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dan, I cut you off there, mate. Go on.
No, I was going to say that. So that means if there's a dead man's switch, that means that more people than Grusch himself have those materials, and that's exciting.
Amanda Rose, I can't put the question on screen, but it's one of the last ones there. Do you guys think Grusch was messaging in this interview to the Trump administration that he should be considered for the UFO czar position? He kept saying he can provide all the vital info. So that's an interesting one. That again, if Trump's got Dr. Phil doing this for whatever reason, maybe Phil just wants to do it for off his own back. But again, there is a relationship there between Phil and Trump. The czar things went a little bit quiet, hasn't it? And I don't know, Pavel, have you heard much more on that?
Right now, I think that it's not even called that. It's a position within the National Security
like
Council.
Chief executive or chief officer or something like that.
Sheehan said it on your show. Yeah.
On your show, yeah.
But what I did find out last week is that it's more than one position. It's not just one. And that people seem to think that Lou already has one of those, Elizondo that is, and that the other one is being contested by multiple people from that, like everybody wants to, even Greer seems to be keen on getting that position, which I don't think it will happen. But that's the information.
Oh God.
I'm not completely against. I would
pay to see that shit, bro.
No,
just for trolling.
You know, when you talk about catastrophic disclosure, Stephen Greer in an official position. Wow, that would be
just put Logan Paul in there. Who cares? Just put Logan Paul in there. Doesn't matter anymore.
Dan, I said this a few weeks ago. I don't think we're far off of having like a reality show with all these UFO folks, Big Brother style, where we can vote them off week after week, and then at the end of it, the winner gets the UFO czar position.
Gross.
I want Celebrity Deathmatch UFO edition.
Yeah.
I also think that position should basically become what that review board that was being pitched for the what is it? Not with the review board. This should be a position that has like 5 to 10 people in it. It shouldn't be one person, maybe one spokesperson, but it should be a committee for sure.
The governance board, you mean?
Yes.
Sheehan said that when I spoke to him, Dan. I don't know if you managed to hear it, but Sheehan
I
very
did.
much was like, yeah, Elizondo shouldn't accept a position. Grusch shouldn't accept a position. It should be multiple people all working together,
Totally agree.
not under the executive branch. Because again, Sheehan's point was they're trying to put this group together, like the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, the head of the NSA, and you're just bringing in all the gatekeepers who are the
Yes.
ones ruining disclosure and ruining progress around a table and saying, "Can you guys fix this?" Because
Right.
yeah, it's
It's
not
like
what
having
we want to do.
like having a dirty cop do an investigation on himself. And
Yes.
funny enough, he finds himself innocent of all crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would never happen in modern America.
Never, dude. We are very much above board over here.
Yeah. God bless you all.
Thanks.
So I want to run a little something by you guys. If you guys have any final deliberations on this, or anything else you want to bring up about both interviews before we move on to something,
I've got something on the Grusch one.
Go ahead.
Grusch talking about in our own galaxy there are exoplanets around other stars, that we shouldn't subscribe to it just being something out in space. I've mentioned. He says maybe it's ultra-terrestrial, grew up here, then left. Maybe shadow biomes, maybe under the sea. And he says, you know, whatever developed on the seabed, wink, wink. And he says a good portion of this isn't traditionally ET. So again, Grusch is like trying to give people a nod there that, you know, whatever developed on the seabed. So is he saying we literally have another form of life that developed underwater? You know, and I years ago, I can't remember who I spoke to, but, and this isn't unique to someone telling me, but the idea that when we crawled out, whatever we were, if you subscribe to that whole crazy evolution stuff, when we crawled out the water and began to breathe air and began to develop, if something in the cosmic clock had a 60-second head start, they would have hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years of an evolutionary head start. They could be reptilian or something else. Why couldn't something have not come out of the water, evolved under the water, and also been intelligent?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
And there's Grusch sitting on Dr. Phil, basically. I mean, I doubt he's talking about mermaids. Then again.
No, he's like, Aquaman is real. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most of us agree that the ocean makes the most sense of all of this. Is that where you guys are at? That the majority of this comes from the ocean?
Yep. Or underground as well.
Which is similar. Yeah, sure.
Because, you know, in Mexico, in the Popocatépetl volcano, there's
The what?
constant.
That's a made-up one.
No,
Popocatépetl?
Popocatépetl. Popocatépetl.
Raton, Florida?
He's fucking making that up.
So that's it's Popocatépetl and the Iztaccíhuatl. So there are two different volcanoes that are close to each other, and there's a really beautiful story that this guy was like a soldier, and this was like a maiden, and they had a beautiful love story, and they named the volcanoes after them. And those volcanoes, there's constant activity. There's cameras put in place 24/7 where you see stuff going in and out of the craters. So potentially, yeah, it's not just the oceans. It's potentially also underground, you know?
Yeah. Tom DeLonge, I'm wearing, some folks have asked, I've got my Monsters of California hoodie on, which was Tom DeLonge's, I want to see B movie, but it's probably under a B movie. But it's like Scooby-Doo on acid. It's pretty fun if people want to go and check out Monsters of California.
It's fun.
But
that's a good word.
It's a fun, especially if you're into the topic and you want to know about DeLonge and his thoughts on this. There's a little bit of that in there, the whole underground, ultra-terrestrial stuff. And
Bigfoot.
Again, yeah, it's one of those things where if you are any civilization living on the skin of the planet, imagine an apple. And if you were shrunk down, I watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids today with my kids, again, for the first time in years. And if you hold up an apple and say, okay, I'm going to shrink you down, where's the safest place to live on the apple? It's not on the skin. That's where you're exposed to all the elements, all the things that could come. Somebody could smack it with their hand You could throw rocks at it. The safest place to be is inside the apple. So again, living on the skin of the planet is not the most sensible place to live. As much as the weather's nice, the temperature's nice, etc., you're exposed to all the elements, volatile weather, any kind of climate change, if people are into that kind of stuff, the flat earthers, all that kind of thing. No, I'm not against climate change, folks. I'm just not going into it. But, you're exposed to so much. It's better and safer to live under the ground because you are more protected. So why wouldn't other things do that? But yeah,
That's true.
And so a shadow biome, if I'm not mistaken, that's something that it's something
Wakanda.
that what?
I always think Wakanda, Black Panther.
Why? Oh, okay,
like that.
cool.
That for me is the whole shadow biome thing.
But I thought it was something that it develops in a certain environment, but doesn't share any other traits of any other living thing in that world. Isn't that what a shadow biome is?
To me, it's sort of like a different reality, even like a different realm that other organisms live in that we can't see and we don't interact with. That's what it.
But a biome is a thing. Isn't a biome like a cell or like a living thing?
I thought it was sort of like a field of sorts. That's how I understood it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Look it up.
I flippantly throw out the Wakanda thing, okay? But I also imagine everyone knows what Wi-Fi is, okay? Wi-Fi is not the internet. Wi-Fi is a signal that the internet travels through. It transfers information. You can't see Wi-Fi, but it is everywhere, and it interacts with your phone devices. It gets interfered with. It's a big thing. It's like a mesh in your house usually. I always imagine there were entities or beings that lived in Wi-Fi. You can't see them, but they're there. It's physically affecting things. Like right now, there is Wi-Fi in this shed, but I can't see it and I can't interact with it. But it does have an impact and effect on things. That's the way I kind of imagine some of that stuff potentially, but I'm not intelligent enough to explain it.
So a shadow biome and a shadow biosphere are similar. Refers to a hypothetical undiscovered microbial world on Earth, uses an alternative biochemistry that does not rely on standard DNA, RNA, or carbon protein rules, and lives unseen right next to known life in extreme niches like deep sea vents or frozen ice.
I see.
Antarctica, guys, come on. This is, come on.
So it sort of is like a different reality, right? That we don't get to see.
Yeah. Something that lives with us that we can't interact with, or we don't interact with.
Whoa.
Because we don't know it's there, maybe.
Quantum world.
It knows we're here and can perhaps some sort of life there can come through here.
Sure.
Or influence us too. Who knows?
Yeah, perhaps. The shadow biome thing, someone's mentioned Gary Nolan claiming about there was a guy who was posting stuff online. I think he was South African and I can't remember the name of the channel. Someone might be able to throw it up. I looked at the guy's channel and I'm really sorry, but I saw nothing that looked interesting there whatsoever. He was showing videos of what looked like bugs, but being shot at incredibly high frame rates and saying, oh, look at this creature that I managed to film. And I'm like, that just looks like a fucking fly or a bug that is, yeah. I saw nothing on that guy's channel that it was alluding to. So unless people had access to some other stuff, whatever that was based off of, and I mean nothing at all, took my fancy. Enough that I saw the guy's stuff and was like, there's nothing for me here to talk to him about.
Guys, we have breaking news. Hold on.
Is it good? Good breaking news?
It's something that I heard was probably common. I don't know if you guys saw this joint clip of David Grusch, Dylan Borland, Matthew Brown, Jeff Nucitelli. There's James Fox presented the Matthew Brown clip over the weekend. The Dylan Borland one just came out, and let's see what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you got it? Can you play it?
Yeah.
It came out earlier today, right?
Yeah. But I hadn't seen it. So, okay. So James Fox says, United States Air Force veteran Dylan Borland making a direct plea to President Trump to release evidence to the American people he and others like him have provided behind closed doors. Here it is.
My name is Dylan Borland, a former geospatial intelligence analyst for the United States Air Force. I'm here today to ask President Trump to declassify all the records regarding UFOs and UAP that were currently brought forward by whistleblowers such as myself and everybody before and after me, both known and unknown. I can tell you with certainty that I provide evidence of current operations to ODNI, Aero, the ICIG, as well as Congress and their staff. We are doing this in hopes that President Trump will actually come forward and begin to lead on this subject and provide truth and transparency to the American people as well as humanity as a whole. It is hopeful for myself and others that bringing these videos to the president, that he will come forward and provide leadership to a new reality for not just America, but all humanity. Thank you for your time and have a blessed day. My name is Dylan Borland, a former geospatial.
These videos, he said. Oh, so so he has knowledge of specific videos. Do you think that this will probably follow up with some kind of official request from, I don't know, Burleson, Luna, somebody like that? That'd be cool.
I imagine those requests have already happened.
Oh.
That's based on nothing. I just assume that those conversations and requests have already been made.
Yeah.
I hope stuff like that's already been made. Again, this isn't too dissimilar to my point about age of disclosure, where if this stuff's having to be put out publicly, are they expecting Trump and Miller and Vance to be on X and going, oh, look, here's some whistleblower videos? Surely these conversations are already happening for the sake of these guys.
Also, I think we've seen in this administration and the last one too, that pressure to release things from the public doesn't always translate to things being pressured and released. Look at the Epstein stuff, the pressure that's been put on this administration to release information on that, and just absolutely nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
So at least I think we're getting more movement on this topic than we are that, which is still reassuring. But yeah, the pleas don't mean that something's going to happen, but they are nice to see, and they do feel pretty powerful.
Man. Oh, man. And it feels like just before the midterms, who knows what else we're going to see. It's going to get crazy.
Did you hear, again, what Sheehan said when I spoke to him? And it's one that was, he got a little political at the end of the podcast, okay?
A little.
Which is difficult for a lot of folks. Yeah, just mildly.
You have to sometimes.
Yeah, just, he said that he felt Trump is going to use the whole "we are not alone" to invoke a crisis situation, and that would allow him to basically keep Senate and the Congress as is, and that would be how he would stay in power and stop elections, by basically going down the alien threat route to say this is not the time to be having elections.
Continuation of government. Continuation of government.
Continuation of government.
He just posted a picture of him wearing a Trump 2028 cap. And the font that he used is Nazi font.
They have their own font?
There's something that says below the picture with Nazi font type of lettering.
Oh. Yeah, so Andy, that clip has been a major point of chat in our Doomer Friday chat that we have. It's been talked about quite a bit, that idea of him doing that. And I don't think he's above it one bit. So maybe this is all groundwork just for that. Who knows? Yeah. Getting the public interested in UFOs to the point where we are paying attention enough where he can pull that out of his back pocket and be like, sorry, guys, no elections right now. We got to deal with these goddamn aliens. These ones.
It still seems pretty extreme. Yeah, it still seems like it's
very.
Yeah, but who knows? Do I see the whole UFO thing being used? Where was it I heard it? On Pavel with yourself and Daniel Elizondo and James, where they said, I would agree. The likelihood is it's mentioned as a little bit of a promise of if we win, if we get the votes to stay in. Your midterms thing, is it for control of the Congress and the Senate? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I imagine it'll be a case of, if we get the votes, then we'll pursue this and carry on with it, even though they should be doing that anyway. That's not great, but I still don't see, and forgive me if I'm wrong, this is just my opinion, folks, right? I don't see that UFOs are a vote winner. I don't see that people are going, well, this candidate's, standing on the UFO his policy. Maybe for us in this little tiny shadow biome of our own, it's a big deal. But for the general populace, are Americans really voting on UFO disclosure? I don't think so.
That's a fair point. I do think that if there is something that is released and announced also by the president before midterms, I do think that it's going to turn into a instantly number one talking point. And I do think that it will be taken more seriously during election time, if something is said publicly and officially.
Depending what's said.
And if evidence is shown.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys remember the time, I know you guys don't follow American politics super closely, but for the last elections when Chris Christie was throwing the UFO question and he laughed it off and made a big fucking joke about it.
I remember.
I don't imagine if it comes up in the next cycle, I would hope that would not be the same reaction that a candidate is given. I think the topic is taken more seriously now than it was then. But we will find out. I think it will come up. I imagine it will come up at some point. I just hope it's not treated as a complete joke.
I think it'll come up, and the response will be something along the lines, what has been said already. It's interesting, isn't it? Really interesting topic. We've done some great work. We've done more than any other administration's ever done. We've got the files dropping out. There's been a big interest in it. People are interested, and we're going to keep going with that. We've done more than previous administrations have. So, yeah, we'll keep going with it. But, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, non-answer.
Yeah. Because let's be fair, and this isn't a dig at the administration or anything like that. They have done more than previous administrations. That cannot be argued.
Mm-hmm.
But they have the authority and power to do a hell of a lot more than they have.
Yes.
So it's like your car. It's like going and buying what's like the nicest, best car in the world, like a Porsche 911, people normally say, or something like that, right? And it can go 150 miles an hour, but you only drive at 30, and you're driving past all your friends going, look at me in my nice car. And we're going, yeah, open it up, Dan, go on, shows 150. And you just keep going buying 30. And we're going, yeah, but it can do more. Yeah, it can. Yeah, I'll show you. And you go buying 30 again. And it's like, can you show us how fast the car can go? And it's like, they could go faster. They could go further. Trump himself could be signing executive orders. They could be making a whole show of this. They haven't. They aren't. I'm appreciative of what we have had, but in a lot of ways, it's still not been enough. So yeah.
Can I say something about that though? Because listening to Grusch and what he said about Jake Sullivan, that they bumped into White House SAPs, he said. It reminds me of that article from last year from L'Espresso in Italy, which is, and this needs to be said for context.
Our Destiny?
It's a left-wing publication that was talking about President Donald Trump being briefed about Project Preserve Destiny. They usually go after Trump pretty harsh on that publication. And in this article, it was really weird because it was just an article that stated the news. They didn't go after Trump in any way. And it was really strange where it came out. And it just makes me think that if they were bumping into these programs and they couldn't get past those, I wonder if like one of these programs is that one,
Again, if people haven't watched it, go and check out the interview I done with Sheehan, because we do go into some different areas of conversation. And another one that was really interesting is around this idea of why this is all happening now. And the fact is that for decades, this subject has apparently been controlled by the same group of folks. I imagine they are all 80 to 90-year-old white men with grey hair and 19-year-old girlfriends, etc. And you don't really know most of their names, probably. You might think you know who's in charge, but you maybe don't. That's probably the real scenario of the guys who run, the shadowy cabal we all think runs the world. Those guys, they're literally dying out. And the people that are going to replace them at the heads of those tables and those positions are jostling for position. And in those times is the whole where there's opportunity and chaos. So is it just the fact that you've got Dan and Pavel vying for Andy's seat, who's died off from that position at 97 years old? And maybe Pavel's a little more open to some kind of disclosure than Dan. And in that, you're jostling for position and power, and that's when structures change, and that's when things do leak, and that's where people see there's a small window and a small gap, so we have to move now while things are a bit crazy, because perhaps in a year's time, in 2 years' time, maybe to do with another administration coming in the States, maybe they think the door might close a little bit on this, and we won't have the same opportunity we have now.
I would think that some of those people that are like up there in age, and just to name a few, Bobby Ray Inman is probably one of those based on his credentials, and he's really, really old. I think the Bush Jr. probably is read into just because of his father. He's been on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, and he was like, I'm telling you nothing. And it seems like he knows way more than he leads on. He was also part of Skull and Bones, that secret society. That also needs to be put into play of all of this, the whole occult side of things and secret societies aspect of it. And yeah, it makes sense what you just said, that there seems to be some kind of struggle at the very top, and we don't know what's going to come out of it really, but it's sort of similar of something that was discussed in my conversation with James and Daniel in the early 90s, when the Soviet Union was like completely like deorganized. There was a lot of opportunity there, and that's probably one of the reasons why George Knapp did go there, and he brought back some stuff that is valuable. I think that something a little similar is happening right now with this topic, based on what you just said, Andy. The old guard is sort of dying out.
Yeah, and it's time for people to take in different positions and move about, and organizational restructures, and even within the private aerospace companies and wings of government, people are moving on, and you just get new ways of thinking, new ideas. And as much as you might want like for like to come in, someone comes in and goes, yeah, I've been, and what was it? It's that whole generational, your son's son takes over. So the guy who started the Roswell cover-ups, and their son comes in, and their son, but maybe just down the line, someone goes, actually, I'm all in on 90% of what we've done, but maybe this could change. Maybe, and that's just through lived experience and opinion, that something changes. And it's just that little bit of, what was it in the Matilda movie, where, the tiniest, something makes the mightiest creak, all that kind of stuff. And it's just enough for something to change.
Here's a crazy thought, though, because one of the oldest families is the Mellon family. Perhaps Chris Mellon inherited that, and he wanted to go a different way to what they were doing. Maybe that's why he is doing what he's doing, right?
What is he doing?
Trying to.
Is he? Anymore?
I don't know.
I also feel like when it comes to politics, I just want to add on what you guys are saying, is that I think a lot of people get into politics with the hope of actually being able to make some changes and do good. I think the intentions are probably good from the beginning. But it's my understanding too, is that once you get there, you kind of are told pretty quickly, like, oh, just so you know, you don't really run anything. You don't really make decisions. You kind of like are the head spokesperson for kind of what other people decide. Obviously, a president has more powers than any kind of civilian, but I don't think they have as much power as they think. And it seems like a big wake-up call once presidents and any high-ranking politician gets into office, where they realize, oh, I can't really make the changes that I promised people, which is why we always see them as liars, because they don't follow through on what they said they were going to do. I don't think they're often allowed to. So when you're asking like why Trump hasn't like done more, maybe he literally can't. Although nothing stops him from just going to a microphone and saying, "By the way, I know this is all real." Like he could say that at any point. But yeah, I don't think he has as much say as we would like to hope.
And when you get to the highest levels of politics, it's pretty clear that at a certain level, the only thing that exists is corruption, and if you're not part of it,
sure,
you're against it, and therefore you cannot be in those conversations and meetings. And it happens in my country. It happens very overtly. And it's like I have an uncle that was killed by cartels from Sonora because of that, because he was a cop and he just didn't want to play along with that level of corruption. And they were like, okay, so you can't be here. And it happens at the highest levels. And I wouldn't be surprised if it also happens at the highest levels in American politics. Because when I was growing up, I always thought when I crossed the border to the United States, I was like, oh, everybody respects the traffic laws and all that, and it's all really well organized. And I was like, oh, this seems like a really legit, like legal country, like really cool. They respect everything, and as you grow up, you just learn that there is corruption, but it's just at the highest levels, like that. Yeah. And here in my country, which is a third world country, it happens on all levels.
Yeah. And again, with the UFO topic with Trump too, and it can't help but get a little political. And I'm not a fan of the guy, but I appreciate what he has let out so far. But this administration doesn't seem to do a whole lot just for the sake of transparency, just to be cool and just to inform the people. There's always some reason for it, some kind of self-beneficial reason. So I'm really trying to figure out what the angle is for releasing UFO stuff, besides Trump's investment in plasma companies and stuff like that. That seems very strange. There has to be some kind of money angle, I think, for him and his friends, that they are even allowing any of it to come out.
So
maybe just to boost stocks in the future. I don't know. Maybe
is it then that people, again, with that whole, normally with any normal political administration, and again, I'm speaking for people in the United States here when I'm not a US citizen, but hey ho, when you had like the Obamas, the Bushes, all that kind of stuff, it was normal politics. So if you wanted to get something done a little out of the ordinary, it wasn't going to happen because it's not the done thing. Then all of a sudden, you've got this different administration in its second term where things aren't being done the same way. And there is cracks in various places where actually we can get something done here. And this goes back to my point of, is there a window where people who are pro-disclosure have went, we didn't get Hillary, who was uniquely into this topic. What we do have is a guy who isn't, and he has said himself, he's not that interested in the topic. So almost that combination of disinterest, but also being able to play on that and be like, there are advantages and benefits to you and companies and friends. You don't even have to give a shit, Donald. Just let us do this thing over here and it doesn't impact you. And what you're seeing now then are the whistleblowers coming forward and playing to the ego to say, this is huge for you. This is defining. This is legacy making. And a guy who initially went, I don't really have to do anything here except eventually say aliens are real, to become the most legendary person ever, potentially. You will cement a legacy there. So that's just a situation that is, for me, pretty realistic. And it's just, again, born out of a little bit of chaos, a little bit of disorder, a little bit of disinterest, and people seeing the opportunity to go. Because imagine, I don't think politics in the US will ever go back to the way it was. I think this has changed the political playing field and what people can.
Good
yeah,
and bad.
for good and for
Mostly
bad.
bad. Yeah.
Like, in the UK, our political system's so boring. Everyone's boring. The politics is boring. The guy we've got in just now, Andy Burnham, just watching him trying to be a normal guy is a little awkward at times and, you know, be the everyman. But I appreciate the attempt he's making at it, right? But just knowing that if in the United States in 2028, you did get another straight-laced politician, one of my favorite things is Futurama, where you've got Jack Johnson and John Jackson, and it's two sides of the same coin. They're just saying the same boring stuff. If you go back to that normal political arena, is it then more difficult to approach a normal politician and a normal administration and go, by the way, with the last guy, we were doing this UFO thing, and they go, whoa, 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 whoa. Have you seen the state of things? We have to fix this and this and this. Your UFO stuff can go in the back burner, and it just takes multiple levels of a step back. So they maybe do see this is the window, this is the time. Maybe that's why the whole 2027 thing has been a thing. Not that something's coming, just that literally that is the window, that is the final year to get done what they want to do. And that's the time that they go full on balls to the wall.
That makes sense to me. I have no doubt in my mind that he will say something, do some kind of address if he survives to the point of being able to make that claim. I think
Or
he will
even
no
on the
doubt.
way out. Trump seems to me the kind of guy who on the way out, say things go as normal, he finishes his
Throw a
term,
hand grenade for the new
and
guy.
you've got the next guy coming in, and Trump goes, you know, I could have told you about the aliens, and you can imagine him on the podium doing that thing where he looks at the teleprompter and then goes, time to ad-lib Donald, and he does the whole, actually, you know what, maybe there is something, aliens, maybe they are here, maybe they're not aliens, you know, I've found out a lot of things that they're actually on, and he just goes off on one, and the next guy's there going, fuck.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very possible.
That could absolutely happen.
Just to be petty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you be against it?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I do care who says it. I've said this many times before. Like growing up, I had a very romantic idea of what disclosure would look like. It would be the Bill Pullman kind of speech and just like a beautiful uniting moment for humanity where we all get on the same page. But now I'm very, very positive it's not going to be that. So at this point, I think we should just take whatever we can get from whoever we can get, make sense of it, and move on as best we can together and with future leaders and people in the public and teachers and professors. But let's just take what we can get and go.
I told Shane, Dan, when I spoke to him and he went off on one on Trump, and I went, look, regardless whether you like him, hate him, or something in between, it doesn't matter, because you're not going to have an adverse effect. And maybe this is me being a little bleak on the outlook, but we won't influence this decision. The people won't. This is happening at higher levels. This is happening in the background. This is a Cold War going on between intelligence agencies, private contractors, scientists that are still missing, and all of the above, these whistleblowers and stuff. If it's going to happen, whether you like the person who says it or not, you will then just have to deal with it from there. And that's that. I said that to Shane, where I went, because he was very much, you know, Trump can't be the guy. And I was like, Danny, you don't get to make that decision.
Yeah.
He can give his opinion on it, but he doesn't make the call. Yeah.
Yep.
Man, we've been on for 2 hours. I want to thank the 1,927 people in here. If you can, give out a like, share the content if you like it, so it can reach more people. But anything you guys might want to add, so we can cut it here. And what are you expecting for this week? If you have any, hopes for something that may happen.
Can I just say 2,000 people with nothing better to do on a Monday is absolutely tragic than listen to us. So I think folks should have a real long look in the mirror, and just, next week, come on, find something better to do. If not, we'll be here. So yeah, but thank you everyone who did check it out. Make sure you've liked, shared, and all that kind of stuff. Afterwards, it might let you hype if you go on and like it then, and hype's a new thing, so that would be much appreciated. On that, we didn't touch on any of the people who donated and stuff like that, and can I just mention those, because I feel really bad that people have parted with their hard-earned money when everyone's skint. David had said a slightly modified mantra from Stone Cold Steve Austin: don't trust everyone. Cheers, David. Some idiot from Others from Another Mother podcast gifted 5 that UFO memberships. Boo to them.
Loser.
Yeah,
Loser.
absolute loser. Clearly,
That show sucks so bad.
Yeah, utter woke nonsense. Cheers, mate. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Dana donated 10 joules, whatever these joules are these days, and said dog wrestler. No idea.
What the fuck is going on?
That might just be a thing that gets, because Dana also donated 2 joules and said sparkles and then said silver star. Mighty Rog or Mighty Rag or Mighty Rog or whatever my site's going gave donation. And David has too much money and donated again to say the Bigelow interviews are very good and enlightening as to what he wants to discuss. He really does want to discuss. He does not want to discuss the material transfer issue. That's correct. Gajanan Gaj, who is in India, donated 200. I believe that'll be rupees, which I think is 4 cents. Said aliens did brain surgery on. No, it's not 4 cents. I've been watching a Scottish guy called Hugh Abroad who goes round a lot of different countries and buys stuff, and he's been buying stuff in rupees and all that kind of stuff. So greatly appreciated. Recommended someone for an interview there for you, Pavel. So that was greatly appreciated. I've worked with a lot of folks from India the last couple of years for various reasons, and yeah, and a few other folks. Fucking hell, man. Mississippi IAN, 250 joules, and Marietta Bat was a member. So thank you, everyone.
Laughing Disco? What the hell is that?
Look at us. 250 joyous. We're not down with the cool kids who understand what all this stuff means. But it's greatly appreciated from my end.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And this week, I'm meant to have a reasonably big interview this weekend, and I'm still waiting on a guy getting back to me again, but he's really few and far between. So I'll wait until I get him to confirm it. But he gave me a date, so it's not Neil deGrasse Tyson, folks. So more well known in the UFO community. But yeah,
Dan, are you still solving crimes right now?
Solving crimes, always, dude. I'm a crime solver. It's what I do. No, I'm actually today. I have a day off today in beautiful Virginia Beach, Virginia. Nice view of the ocean today. I'll be doing some sky watching tonight. Thank you guys for letting me pop on for a few minutes today. I missed these talks tremendously, and I love that you guys are doing these Monday streams. It's very cool. You guys are a good match. A cute couple, I'll say.
What are you expecting for this week, Dan, if anything?
I have learned to stop expecting or anticipating anything, because I truly would have never thought that Dr. Phil speaking to Dave Grusch would have been one of the most consequential interviews of my lifetime. I think it's maybe the best thing Grusch has done so far, almost. I mean, the Ross thing was huge, but he said more during this than he has during his congressional testimony, during anything. So I just look forward to being surprised, and things are going the right direction, and I just hope things keep going the right direction.
Yep. And you can see the brick that Andy put there right next to him. Go buy the book.
I shit one of those. I have one of those.
Do you know, I would love to say that book is #1 in 30 different countries.
You would love to say it, but you can't, or it is?
I can't, because that's not true.
You tricked me, you fuck.
Yeah.
That book has been sold in more than 4 countries.
That's good.
Huge. It's more than
2 million copies.
Yeah.
2 million copies may one day be printed of that book.
And sit in a warehouse for years and years and years.
Absolutely. And for any Alan Partridge fans, one day, this is a very niche reference, I may live to see my book be pulped. So yeah, but that's a very niche reference, folks.
Beautiful.
All right.
Love you, fellas.
Thank you so much for a great conversation. And I hope I get to see you guys soon, if not next Monday. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to the mods. Love you guys. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.